I'm fat. And it's time to face the elephant in the room. I know, it's a horrible pun. But it's time to deal with the thing that has held me back my whole life, or that I've used as an excuse to hold me back my whole life. The tool of self-sabotage that I've used. So today on Healing Streams, it may get a little uncomfortable. You may get triggered. You may get angry, and you may unsubscribe. But somebody out there is just like me. Somebody out there has used every excuse in the book and every diet in the book and knows what to do. Or maybe you don't know what to do, but you know there's something more than what you've done. And you know there's something holding you back. And it's manifesting as fat on your body. There's a way out. I know it, but I'm not doing it. And that's very frustrating. So this is my true confessions time. This is my taking apart all the facade and all the things that I've tried and all the things that I've done, how I've medicated myself with food, how I've punished myself with food, and speak that truth to you so that maybe it can help you find a way out. But most of all, I'm just going to be honest. I have to find a way out, and I know the way out, and we will talk about that in a little bit. But let's start in the beginning. My beginning with food started, as far as I can remember, when I was in kindergarten. That's the first time I remember my grandmother talking about me being overweight. That's the first time I remember the mention of diets and eating too much and body image and those things. And it was normal for me. Because I had heard that kind of talk before it was directed toward me, because I had heard my grandmother, who was known in her life as being one of the most beautiful people that anyone had seen. In my hometown, everybody was like, oh my gosh, your grandmother was just is beautiful, was beautiful when she was young, is beautiful now, just stunning. And I heard people say the same thing about my mom, but both of those women in private didn't do anything but criticize themselves, and were always trying to lose weight and doing this fitness plan and all those things. And when it turned to me, it didn't feel abnormal. Looking back now, I know that it was abnormal. But it didn't feel abnormal at the time. It was just like, oh, this is what we have to do to be beautiful. And beauty is so important. Beauty is the ultimate thing to be desired, right? I mean, that's still in our culture so much, but it was very much in my family. And I'm probably going to say some things that may sound like I'm trying to throw shade on my family, like I'm trying to blame them, but I'm just walking through it and telling you where I've been and where I am and who I am and what I know I need to become. So 5 years old, and I'm aware of what I eat or what I shouldn't eat. But looking back, what I'm mostly aware of was food was my comfort. When I was 5 years old and my brother was 7, my mom and my dad separated, which is a very common story, right? And there was a pretty rough custody battle. over us. And I'm not going to get into the details of that, but, you know, at first I didn't see my dad at all, and then I didn't see my mom at all. But what was always there in the midst of it, especially when I came back to North Carolina, because my mom had moved us to Georgia. When I came back to North Carolina with my dad, I just remember food was part of how people were trying to comfort us. And I guess I just really learned to eat to comfort myself at a very, very early age. And we were a Christian family, and nobody was actively doing the bad things in my family, or at least nobody that I knew about. Looking back, people were, but I didn't know as a kid. But food was the thing that was allowed. You could eat when you were happy and eat when you were sad, and eat to celebrate and eat to mourn. And I used to think that was just a Southern thing, but I think it's a everywhere thing. And it's only a problem when it gets out of control. And there are people raised in cultures that do that are totally fine, that have a healthy relationship to food. But I realized that I wasn't raised with a healthy relationship to food. So fast forward into, I'm trying to think, maybe it was, I vividly remember a weigh-in my elementary school. You know, they would weigh us and measure us, and that was just part of what they did in that time. And I don't remember what grade I was in. I couldn't have been more than first or second grade, and I weighed more than everybody in the class. I didn't take into account that except for one boy that was like a half an inch taller than me, I was taller than everybody else. All I could think was, I weighed more, I'm fat, and I'm not worth as much. And looking back at pictures, I was just a normal sized kid. And just like every other kid, and I tell people this, let me pause to interject a nurse practitioner, pediatric health thing into this video. I have assessed so many kids that parents are afraid because they're starting to go this way more than they're going this way. But I like to remind them that most kids grow like this. It's just what they do. They put on a little extra weight, and then they shoot up, and then they put on, and that's normal. So if that's what your child's doing, please don't freak out about it. Okay, so I didn't know that, you know, I didn't take into account that I was one of the tallest kids, and there was just this immense shame related to food. And then it became this, the shame and the guilt, but then it's the forbidden thing, you know. I feel like our family, not my dad, but me and my mom and my brother were always going on and off diets. We would have diet foods in the house, and then we wouldn't, you know, we would be drinking nothing but Diet Fago. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. They didn't know during that time the things we know now. Or we would drink lemonade or Kool-Aid that we made, which is dye and sugar, right? Gosh. Oh, Lord. And it was just, even though I really didn't have a weight issue until I hit my teenage years, that obsession with food was there. That need to just have more and get as much as I could. And we didn't know whether we were going to be on a diet or not be on a diet. And I remember going with my Aunt Belinda to Dairy Queen. We were in Atlanta. I visited my grandparents, and this was actually before she was my aunt. It's when she was just my uncle's girlfriend, and she took us to Dairy Queen, and she was like, "What do you want?" And I was afraid to even order anything, and so I decided to get a hot fudge sundae, and she was like, "Oh, I always get extra hot fudge. You need to get extra hot fudge." And I was just like, "I can't." And she just said to me, "Eat what you want. Your mama's not here." And I thought that was really interesting because she could see the restriction in food. Now, whether that was the right thing to say or not, I understand now that she was just trying to be like, it's okay. I was probably about 10 at the time, but it's funny how those things stick in your mind. And it's funny how guilty I felt, and I felt like I needed to go home and confess to my mom that I had had extra hot fudge. It's so crazy. And my grandmother would talk about my weight a lot, and my mom's weight a lot, my brother's weight a lot, and her weight a lot, and everybody else in the family or anybody that she saw a lot. And at the same time, she would be like, "Let's go just eat ice cream for supper," because she truly didn't have a weight problem, but she had a body image issue. It wasn't until she got much older, like up into her 70s, that she started having any issues at all with having weight that she really didn't want on her body. But that food issue, the body image, all of that. Oh, but then the real problems probably started for me when I was playing basketball and I was 16, and I was so active that I could eat a ton. And I did eat a ton because I was active and I was hungry all the time, but the activity was covering up the obsession with food. So I would get up in the morning and I would eat breakfast before I got ready for school. And then I would usually eat a snack during my first class. And then we would have a break around 10 o'clock or so. And I would eat a snack then. Then I would eat lunch. Then I would eat an afternoon snack. And then we would have basketball practice. And I would be starving by the time I got home. And I would eat when I got home. And then at night, I would eat like a bowl of cereal or something. So I was consuming a massive amount of food. But because I was so active, you couldn't see it on my body. But then I blew out my knee when I was 16 and ended up having to have 2 surgeries. And the second surgery, the first surgery was not so bad because I could still get around and go to school. But the second surgery, they sent me home for 3 weeks to do nothing but sit on my couch. Now that would not be our recommendation for people, but back then that was the recommendation. And I was told I wasn't even allowed to get up by myself because I might fall and mess up my knee. Blah, blah. So I would literally scoot on my butt to the bathroom. It was crazy. So I was so depressed. They told me that I probably shouldn't ever play basketball again. And all I could do was eat. And I ate and I ate and ate. And so by the time I was 16 until the time I was 18 and when I graduated, I had gained 50 pounds. And just had a totally different outlook on life. And I had always been shy. I had always been a little bit reserved. And it just made me more so. It just made me get stuck in this thing that said, if I wasn't fat, these things would happen. Now, I do have to say that it didn't stop me from being active. It didn't stop me from doing things like running for student council president or being active in those kind of capacities. But it was always there in the back of my head, always the "you're not as good as" because of this. And at the same time, it was my beautiful excuse for every rejection. It was, well, if I was thinner, I would have dates. If I was thinner, I would be able to do this, or this person would like me or wouldn't like me, or I could do this activity or not, or it little by little became my excuse for every time I failed. Instead of just saying, maybe that person just wasn't that into me, and that's okay. Because, I mean, it's just easier to have an excuse, especially if we're talking about rejection and people not liking you. And for young girls, and I mean, I can't speak as being a young boy, but for a young girl, feeling like people are rejecting you and that nobody wants to go out with you, is, it's really devastating because it's a major thing at that time, everybody having boyfriends but you, everybody getting asked out by you. And I blamed it on the fat then because it was just easier, So then I went to college. And let me just say that I was not at all prepared for college. I was prepared as far as academically, but I moved into a world that I had never been exposed to, of drinking and sex and all around me, that I just was like, what? Because that was not me and my little group of friends in my little high school. And so I hid myself away. And that's when my real just abusing myself with food. Before, I would say I was medicating myself, but literally abusing myself with food, because I can remember so clearly just eating until I would literally think that my stomach was going to rupture. I mean, I would literally think that, and just lay down and just be like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable. And as soon as that feeling of uncomfortable went away, I would start eating again. I don't know that I was truly hungry in that whole first year of being in college. So I just ate and ate and ate and ate. And then I came out of college, or got kicked out of college, because I was not just hiding I was hiding from life. And the fatter I got, the less I wanted to go to class, and the less I wanted to do my work. So I didn't in my non-major classes, and they frown on that. So yeah, I got kicked out of college the first time at East Tennessee State University, and then through a series of events, I ended up traveling with a Christian drama company, and oh my gosh, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I never thought I would do drama, but I did, and I loved it. But I was this big, tall, redheaded girl that was overweight on a team. There were 6 of us, 3 girls and 3 boys, and I had these petite, teeny tiny little 2 other girls, and I just felt like the giant. And so I would just eat, I would just eat. I remember one of those things, it's funny, the things that stick with you, and I know I've said that before, but I remember during that time, I transferred from one drama company to one team, the same drama company, one team to another. And there's this guy named Joe on the team, really nice guy. And Let me back up. 2 comments out of that time frame that stuck with me and just really hit me hard. Before I was on a drama team and I was just in the drama company, they made you stay in the home base to learn all the skits and to do the bookings. So you saw what the back end was like. And there was this team leader there named Paul, and he made the comment that I should be a model, which I had heard before in my life. And I just said, yeah, no, I couldn't model. And he said, well, you could model for the big girls. Looking back now, bless his little heart, right? Things you should never say to a girl. It hit me so hard. Hit me so hard. I knew he was trying to compliment me, and he was a really tall, really big guy himself. So he was trying to compliment me, and I get that. And if he ever sees this video, I don't take it personally, but just comments like that. Because that says, this part of you is good enough, but this part of you is not. Then there was another episode where I was on my second team, and we had this guy named Joe, and he made some really, I don't even know what started it. I can remember the church we were at. He made some comment about me having big arms. And I just broke down, because that was a part of my body that I had always been self-conscious about. And I just broke down and started crying and just ran off, and he chased after me, and I ran through every part of that church. Dear Lord, now thinking about it, when he finally caught me, he was like, Steph, I was like, what? Just leave me alone. I mean, I'm pretty sure I told him I hated him, and he was like, I just meant, because we were always lifting things and set stuff in boxes, and he was like, I just meant you have muscular arms. I didn't. And I was like, well, whatever. Who knows? But the fact was, it was always raw. It was always raw and overwhelming for me. And it was all, I just pushed it in the back. And so from the drama company, I started college again at Lee University. And there, I got much more of a handle on my weight, and I was exercising. And that's the first time I ever heard what I believe is the truth about food. I'm not here to argue this, and I'm telling you, this is what I believe the truth is. I believe you should eat when you're hungry, and you should stop when you're full. And that's the first time I ever heard that truth. And I started walking in that truth, and my weight just came into alignment. And I was like, oh, I'm finally done. I just ate what my body was craving. I would stop and think about what I should eat, and I would eat when I was hungry and stop when I was full, and I didn't care what time of day or night it was. If I got hungry, and I didn't care how much or how little I ate, I just ate within those parameters. My body came into alignment, and I exercised, and I felt better, and I was athletic again, and I felt more like myself. And then I got really sick, which I've shared some about that, and had to come out of school, and the stress and the frustration of having to do that, I started emotionally eating again. And that began this cycle of, when I was in a down state, I would put tons of weight on. And when I was happier, I would lose the weight. And because it was just how I medicated myself. And even in those times, I I would have times where I absolutely just glutted myself with food to the point of pain. And yeah, then I'd have periods where I would just be like, I'm just not going to eat. I'm just going to fast, because I believe in fasting, and I have fasting in my life now, and have in a healthy place during different times of my life. But I would just be like, I'm just not going to eat at all. And that would usually not last more than about 12 hours. And then I would binge. And it was just such an unhealthy relationship with food. But I realized, looking back, that every time that I thought I had my food under control, it's just because I was in a good place in my life emotionally. And every time that I would get out of control, it's when I was emotionally in a bad place. And the first time I realized that I was using fat for protection, I was 27, I guess, and I was friends dating this guy that ultimately rejected me. And I just felt this pain that I had never felt before. And during that time, I was at the perfect weight for my height, and I was active, and I realized, I just thought, what is this? Is this because I've never felt this deeply about somebody? Is this because, what is it? But I realized part of it was because I didn't have the fat to blame during that part of my life. I didn't have an excuse for why he didn't love me the way I loved him, except he just didn't love me. And every time before, when I got rejected by guys, I could say, well, if I had been 30 pounds thinner, he would have loved me, or, wanted to go out with me, or whatever it was. And from that point, I went through a series of rejections, mostly because I made some stupid choices. Because I didn't believe in myself, I didn't value my worth, and I refused to see the red flags about some men, and just got really hurt. And every time my weight would go up a little bit, and just, this cycle. So when I got married, when I met my husband, I was heavier than I wanted to be, but he loved me and he thought I was beautiful. Obviously, he proposed to me and we got married, and I didn't fit into my wedding dress the way I wanted to fit into it, which is miserable. I did not feel like the beautiful bride. I did not feel like the princess that I thought I was supposed to feel like. It was really hard. And then my husband and I, and we're real open about this, we went through some really tough periods, and I just used food. To make things easier on myself. And I did a lot of eating in the middle of the night. I did a lot of eating in my car, just hiding and eating. And it just became this constant thing back and forth. And when we had been married about a year, I remember standing in the shower and just praying and saying, God, I want to be free from this. I don't want to even think about it. I want to be free from it. And I just heard freedom boundaries. And I was like, what's a freedom boundary? And God said, like, guardrails are freedom boundaries, and the lines on the road are freedom boundaries. Within those lines, you drive however you want to, whatever, but those lines keep you safe, and the speed limit keeps you safe. Those are freedom. They're boundaries, but they're freedom. And he said, eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full is a freedom boundary. He gave me 3, and I'm going to share those with you. And like I said, these are not up for debate for me. You can take them or leave them, but he said, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is what you eat determines your health. How much you eat determines your weight. And step number 3, he told me, don't eat sugar if you are tired or if you're frustrated, you know. So those are the boundaries he gave me. And I just remember thinking, wow, is it that easy? And I started walking in that, and the weight just started coming off. And I felt so free. I felt so free. But then every time something would hit, like we had our first miscarriage, and I went back to that old comforter, and the weight came back on, and we had marriage troubles, and, you know, and it was just this up and down every time. And the first time I really felt like I heard the truth about just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, I was 21, 22. I'm 50. And I still know that's the truth. I'm going to fast forward to 2 miscarriages behind us. And I was in school to be a nurse practitioner. And this is what happened. I had been glutting myself with food all day, just eating whatever I could find in our house. And I was in the midst of eating some little candy bar, I can't remember, that I had, you know, the miniature ones, and you're supposed to have like 1 or 2, and I'd had like probably the whole bag. And in the middle of the night, studying, because I was working and studying, and John was in school, and I just remember, this is the thought that came to my mind. I should write a book about weight loss. Do I even have to say how ridiculous that sounds? But I knew in my heart that I knew the truth and that I needed to get it out there. And the first thing I said was, God, I will do that as soon as I get the weight I need to get off my body off. And I heard God say, no, everybody writes weight loss books as experts, but nobody is willing to write the book in the process, speaking the truth, living the truth, dealing with the lies, dealing with the pain. Nobody is doing that. And, you know, looking back now, God was asking me to write a book that's like all the YouTube things that are out there now, like Watch Me Transform, and everybody praises them. And at the time, I was like, no, nobody's going to. Who reads a book about losing weight from a fat girl? Like, who does that? I started writing it anyway. I did. Totally started writing it that night. And then on and off for years. And you may ask, where is that book now? Well, it's 95% complete in my computer. How many times has God told me to release that book? Probably at least 100. If you guys have ever heard of Jamie Winship, which I highly, highly, highly recommend his book, Living Fearless. It's awesome. It's down in the links in my description. It's one of the books that has changed my life. He talks about asking God what he wants you to know and what he wants you to do. About a year ago, I knew that God was totally transforming my life. It started about 2 years ago, but really a year ago, I was like, things are really being shaken up. And I knew I was shifting and going into a new career space and just going into this coaching arena. And God said to me, you have to go back and you have to finish the things that you have started. And there were two major things that I knew that I needed to finish. The first was a functional medicine certification program that I had not finished, paid for but hadn't finished, so I went back and finished it. The second was my coaching certification program that I had started and not finished, so I went back and finished it. But the third I knew was releasing my book. And I was like, so here's the deal, God. I am a licensed nurse practitioner. I know how to help people heal. I know how to prescribe meds. I'm a good diagnostician. People have come to me and gotten help that couldn't get help from anybody else. And I've got this thing. I can do the coaching. I have pivoted in my life. I have rebounded in my life from hard places and totally fallen on my face and gotten back up. And I can do all those things. So I can do that part of the coaching. But Lord, do you know I'm fat? Do you know I still have all this extra weight on my body that I should have had off my body years ago? Do you know that? I mean, because, if he's looking at us through the blood of Jesus, does he see the fat? And I know he said to me, you cannot go forward with what I have called you to do until you finish the things that you started in the past. And I have been trying my best to go forward. And I have managed to go forward in a lot of things. And I knew that actually starting this YouTube channel was one of the things that I knew that God has told me to do a long time ago. And I never did it. And man, it's just, I've taught myself so much. Just speaking the truth that I know that God has spoken to me. And tonight, I honestly, full disclosure here, I was like going back through my videos and I listened, just trying to see what I had recorded and I hadn't posted. And I listened to a couple of my own videos and I in that video was talking about you get 95% done with something and then you don't want to finish it. And I realized that's what I've done. I've gotten my weight under control before, but not my emotional eating. And so everything on the outside looked good and I was healthy. And I mean, I've been at a place in my life where I was a massage therapist. I was doing 4 or 5 massages in a day, and then I would go wakeboarding. I would get up in the mornings and go running, and a short run for me was 5 miles. And, I was crushing it physically. But as soon as I wasn't doing that anymore, the emotional eating triggered again. And now I'm in a place where I feel like emotionally I'm healthier. But my body is rebelling against the weight. I know that. I know my body is rebelling against the weight. We can talk about that. There's a really interesting book about endocrine disorders and all this stuff where they talk about how fat is an endocrine disruptor, how fat, once you get a certain amount of fat on your body, and it's different for everybody, okay? It could be 15 pounds for somebody. It could be 50 pounds for somebody. It could be 100 pounds for somebody. But at a certain set point in your body, the fat becomes like an endocrine organ and protects itself. So it is self-sustaining in your body and it will fight against you so that you can't get rid of it, kind of like what a cancer does. So to me, I'm like, it's like the fat has become a cancer. I don't need you to tell me that I'm not fat. I don't need you to tell me to love myself the way that I am. I don't need you to tell me that I'm worth something, because I know those things. I have worked through all of those things. I know that I'm worth something, even if I never lose the weight. I've become a nurse practitioner. I've helped people. I've saved people's lives. I've helped people have babies that couldn't have babies before. My husband and I started a ministry, and we were able to, see people's lives changed. And I know that I am a worthy person. But this is what else I know. I've got too much fat on my body. And that fat is holding me back because it always makes me question myself. Every video I do, it makes me question myself, because I think, is somebody out there thinking, why should I listen to her about health stuff? Because she's obviously overweight. Is somebody out there thinking this? It undermines everything. Not in a way that it stops me from doing it, obviously, because I'm here, but in a way that I can't walk forward in total confidence. And if you don't feel like being overweight is an issue for you, then you don't need to listen. And if you feel like that diet and exercise is the key, you don't need to listen. But I'm telling you, I've done it. I've done every diet. I've done so much stupid stuff to my body. The one thing I have not done, I will say this, is that I'm falling down in the couch, and so I'm going to shift up. I have never taken medications to cause me to lose weight, because just as a medical professional, I couldn't do that. Okay? I just thought that was the most stupid thing. And I still, I just offended somebody, I'm sure. But I still think it's ridiculous. And I still think that we're looking for ways to control the food instead of controlling ourselves. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. I don't think that everybody that has weight on their body, there's a gnat flying around, has an emotional eating thing. Some people just eat too much and they go, oh, wow, I should get myself in order, and they do, and they're fine. But I believe that those of us that have gone up and down and up and down and up and down our whole lives, there's an emotional eating component. The fat has become a protection. The fat has become the excuse. The fat has become the ultimate self-sabotage. I'm going to tell you something else that fat is a protection from. Unwanted attention. There have been times in my life that I wanted the attention of men, because I was looking for a boyfriend or looking for a husband. But now that I have a husband, I don't want attention from men. And I know that there's a part of me that uses fat to keep from getting extra attention. Which really stinks for my husband, who's never seen me anyway except on the chunky side. Well, that's not true. I got down to a normal weight right before I got pregnant the first time. So he has seen me one time in the 16 years of our marriage, the weight that I should be. Talk about stress in your marriage. We can talk about that later, but I know I've said a lot. And I know that I've probably opened up a lot of stuff that I have not given answers to, but there's going to be more videos coming as I honestly process through these things, because it's time to get real with myself. I released a video about the fact that I'm a bully and a liar, not to other people, to myself. I bully myself and I lie to myself and I make myself promises that I don't keep. I just want to be free. And I know that for me, that my truth and the truth that I have been able to share with other people, that they have applied to their lives and changed their lives, and I still have not, is that you can eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. It's that what you eat determines your health, and how much you eat determines your weight, and that you should not have sugar if you're tired, lonely, angry. And then you just repeat it. There have been times in my life where this system has worked amazingly for me, but I've never gotten to the root issue. I've never pushed past that. I've, worked up to that 95%, but that 5%, that little bit of root that I left in there, kept crawling back, kept popping back. Another thing that sabotaged me along the way, and I realized this every time that I would be like, Steph, you know the truth, just live the truth. Somebody would come into my office and be like, I want to do a keto diet. I want to lose weight doing keto. Can you help me walk through keto? And I would say, well, keto will absolutely help you lose weight. And it's a quick way to lose weight. It's a quick way to get diabetes under control. And it works great as a short-term thing. But what you really need to deal with is the emotional side of things. And they would be like, I know, but I can't do that right now. So I would help them with keto, or I would help them with their diabetic diet, or I would help them with their heart healthy diet, or they would want to try this diet, the Atkins diet, the rice diet, the potato diet. They want to do this, they want to do that. And I would research. I can tell you, I know all the medical reasons why I should not be saying this, why it has to be this or this or that. But I'm telling you, the only thing that I've ever had peace with, I would say, I'm going to do this. A patient would come in. I would start looking at all the scientific stuff. The reason why just eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full couldn't work, and it has to be something else. There has to be some kind of gene that's making us fat. There has to be something we can blame it on instead of us taking responsibility. And I would eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and I would taint it with this other stuff. You have freedom to eat what you want, when you want, how you want. To me, this is the crux of freedom boundaries. And that is, the first one, eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, has to do with the heart factor. It has to do with the sin factor. If you're a Christian and you believe in gluttony, it has to do with the need for more, wanting more than what I really need. And what you eat determines your health, and how much you eat determines your weight. And the sugar, not eating sugar when you're lonely or tired or those things, has to do with expediency, because Jesus said, all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. And some scriptures talk about not all things are expedient when compared to other things. So I'm going to expand more on each of those truths, and I'm going to get my book finished and make it available. And I'm going to have to change some things, because some of the stories that I have told in there have now evolved into more stories and more things. But if you have resonated with this at all, if you know that you've tried every diet, you've tried all the stuff, and somewhere in your heart, you know there's just a part of food that you just that desire for food that you won't give up, that you're terrified to give up the ability to just eat as much as you want to. If any of this, if this scares you, that's because there's a place in you that you know it's truth. If it doesn't resonate with you, it's okay. You walk your path and I'll walk mine, and we can agree to disagree. I will say this, I'm not going to argue in the comments the science or I'm not here to argue all of that. I'm here to walk my path and put my path out there. And just like all the other stuff that I put out, it's stuff that I've walked through first. The relationship stuff, the things with toxic people and setting boundaries in relationship and learning to love yourself and pushing through the hard times and rebounding. It all comes from my walk and things that I've learned. And I believe that there are other people out there like me. This is my healing journey. This is part of my healing journey. And if it's a part of yours too, that would be awesome. I would love for you to walk with me through this, and let's see what we can learn. I'm going to ask you to like this video and to put in the comments whether it connected with you or whether it didn't connect with you, and whether you're on the journey too. Because I would love to get a community started of people that know there's a better way. There's a more excellent way to walk through this whole weight, diet, health issue. There just is. And it is not about black and white, right and wrong. It's about the relationship between my heart and the heart of my Father. It's the relationship between me and the Holy Spirit that resides in me. I hope you have a wonderful evening, day, morning, whatever it is when you're listening to this. Thank you for letting me share my story and process and put myself out there so that, having come to you and confessed my failings, I can be healed myself and release that healing to other people. Have a blessed night.